What's up everybody, welcome back to Isolation. This series is all about riding bikes, building trails, and making the most of life during this pandemic. Today we're down in my hometown of North Saanich, BC, and there's this really unique little riding zone that I built back in 2011. We're gonna do a walkthrough of the whole trail, tell the story, and show you all the video footage from that project. I'm pretty excited because this is the place that kind of started it all for me and fueled my passion for trail building. I first came out here back in 2010, like late 2010, and I was just looking for a place to build and get a photo of a cool jump because there was a photographer coming to town and I wanted to get like a really good shot of myself. It was my first opportunity working with a pro photographer. So I hiked around forever. There was this forest here near my parents' house at the time and this big uprooted tree right here. So what I did is I built this one single hit. It's a pretty aggressive step down, like the lip's like 4 feet tall and you air all the way down to there. Pretty rad. So that was the very first thing that I built out here. Pretty sweet. And from there it just kind of spiraled and I have like more and more stuff kind of branch off. If you look now, there's stuff all over the place. After building this one hit, I noticed this forest was so perfect for more jumps because it has natural rolling hills on it. So if you look at this, there's like a little bump after the actual landing for the step down up here. But it's cool because like I didn't have to build any landings. All the transitions are already like cut into the forest, which is really cool. It saved me a lot of work digging and I just want to work with that natural landscape. And that is like the biggest tip I can give to anybody who's into trail building is really work with the natural landscapes. Like don't go out there with something in mind that you've pre-planned because it's always frustrating when you're like, oh, I want to build a step up or I want to build this big hip jump. And then you go search a zone that you can like have access to and there's no good spot for either of those things. Like that's not what you really want to be doing. You really want to just like work with what you got, and that's exactly what I did here. It worked out really cool. A little backstory on this place. I was in university at the time getting a bachelor's degree in sport and fitness leadership. It was pretty cool, fun program, made a lot of good friends, and I was using my time between studying to come up here, get a break from studying, and I would just like come out and dig for a few hours at a time because it was really relaxing. And after just over 1 year, I got all this stuff built. Okay, there's two lines. There's a line that starts up on the ridge behind me here, and then I'm at the top of a rock bluff right here that drops into another line. So let's take a look at this. You come down and it's like just a little like steeper, bit of a rockier bit, and it's even changed since I last built in here. Okay, so my original line was going into this berm right here, and then you just like smack the berm, and then there's a little drop you pop out of into a transition. So that was it. Really simple, really basic, just a fun like little poppy line to really start you off and get the flow going. And it was kind of intended to speed check you for the next hit. And it's cool because like a year or two ago, some kids came in here and they built a little double drop right here, which is really fun too. Like you got like a little like waist high drop into a slightly bigger drop right after that shares the same transition as my first little hit. So it's cool, there's two options now. It's really cool that there's people in here building besides me. And yeah, this spot has become like a local favorite zone for like some of the local kids here and other local riders. So that's awesome. I'm so stoked that happened. And then, yeah, so here's the first berm on the first line. Nice long sweeping berm, pretty mellow, not very steep. And then it's just to like cruise around. And then you have a hip step down to start things off. This jump is so much fun. This was like the first like hit on the actual line here and it's so sick. I like how you can like hit it pretty slow and just pop it and crack a table on it. This was the first step down I ever 360'd. It was pretty cool. It took me a couple tries, but I nailed it. So the video called Sweat Equity, which I shot back in 2012 for Cro-Mag Bikes, was kind of a breakthrough video for me because I had been quietly working alone on this trail for like just over a year. I didn't really document it besides sharing a few photos on Facebook with friends or like texting shots to like my buddy Aaron Larocque who filmed the video with me and getting him all stoked on what we were going to work on. But other than that, I didn't document it. I worked away quietly and then I dropped the video out of nowhere. It got a couple 100,000 views, and it really helped me with future sponsorships. So that was awesome. So all the hard work digging this place, it's like a really special place to me because it is like, it's just like, I was like at my grassroots level, like out here after school, digging for hours, no support on the bike. Like I had a few free bike parts, that was it. And I would just go out here and I was trying to make something of myself. So it's just so cool to see like the progression of not only the trail building, but my career as well. So that's also why I love this place, and it means a lot to me. Okay, the next hit here is just a nice, fun, straight step down between the two trees. This is a really cool one, and I'm still waiting to see someone triple this and go on to that second transition. That would be so sick. But yeah, here it is from the side. Pretty mellow takeoff, not too tall. Another like waist high hit, and then you just like rip through, maybe like 20 feet out. Then you have a nice little pocket you can land on. It's pretty fun. Got a nice good case pad, so pretty low consequence step down. A lot of fun though, pretty photogenic, especially on a foggy day, because you can like go between those trees and get stylish or throw the hands off. It's a really nice one to do no-handers on. And then yeah, you cruise through here. Really cool. And then you can kind of scrub your speed. And then what I didn't realize, because I kind of built the line backwards, right? Like I built that last stump jump. Well, it's not a stump jump, but the jump against the uprooted tree. When I first built that, I was starting from like right here. So I didn't need a lot of speed. I didn't have a whole line in mind. So now that there's an entire line, that thing is like such an overshoot every time unless you really brake check. So I use this second roller to scrub my speed, really slow down. And then you come through, take another brake check, and then you can use this tree here on the left, like that big tree there, as a visual guide. And then you just like pop as high as you can, boost it, get it sideways, and you feel like you're just like falling out of the sky on this one. It's so cool. And it's a really unique jump. Like I don't know many jumps like this at all. It's really cool. Like you're popping and you're falling the entire time. Like you don't really feel like you're ever going up, because as you're going up, you see the landing way down there. So it feels like you're falling. It's like a free fall into like a berm you can just smash, because right after the free fall, you go into this fast little corner here, and then you just skid your way out to the bottom. And that is the first line. And right now, today, it's considered the warm-up line because the main line is a lot bigger. Let's go check out the main line. We're now at the top of the big line. I remember when I was filming here back in 2013 for a video called Alchemy, another Chrome bike sponsored project my buddy Eric Lorneck was shooting. I did my first downhill bike backflip, and I remember like getting all psyched up for the flip on the big jump, and it was like a 30-foot gap. It was a big jump to flip for my very first time on a big bike. All right, let's take a look at it here. So you come down, and it's pretty steep on the edge, and it's actually really loose right now because no one's rode this in a while. There's like loose leaves everywhere. But yeah, you come down, there's a nice little catcher berm right here. And that kind of scrubs your speed a bit because, as you can tell, it's pretty steep here. And then right out of this little catcher berm, you got a nice little step down that you just pop right out of. So that's pretty cool. And then you want to take another brake check. That's kind of the theme of this zone, because when I first built it, everything was soft and soggy, and I was like thinking about, okay, how am I going to clear this? And I was pretty new to trail building, this sort of stuff, and I didn't like factor in that when stuff dries up and hardens, it runs a lot quicker. So everything here is basically an overshoot. And then you go into this huge step down over the ferns, completely blind. It's nuts. It's so easy to go too far on. And no one likes to hit this. I'm one of the only people who's actually hit this jump because it just intimidates a lot of people. And if you look over there, that's the landing right beside the big cedar. Let's walk down there and take a look at it. That's the landing here. It's really hard to tell on video, but it's quite short. Like this is like maybe 2 bikes long, which is pretty gnarly when you're coming off a big blind step down hip jump. You really want to have more landing zone than this. So there is one time where I actually landed like my front wheel like in the bushes down here and just flew off the bike. It was so terrifying. Before I get too far down this trail though, I really want to show you something crazy, and there's a good backstory behind it. A few years ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, I was talking to Jordy Lunn, and he was having trouble at his rough AF zone with the landowners and needed a new place to go. So I was like, yeah man, come to my trail, build your own stuff. and take it over, because like no one's really riding there right now. I don't live in town anymore. Go take it over. So he did, and he built this stunt that he never got to ride. It was this really gnarly tree climb. So think of like the opposite of his badass tree roll. He made a big log ride to ride up. It's really steep and long. This was supposed to be for an e-bike edit. So like you would like basically hit some big jumps, then loop around, and then pedal up this massive steep log that goes up the side of the hill. So crazy. Back to the main big line. After that blind step down, you rip through. This part was so bad to build. It took me like a month to build this section because I remember school being really intense and I didn't have as much time out here, and this was all just like pure rock, and there was like a river running through it. So I had to take like all river rock and elevate everything by like a foot or so, and then do a dirt topping. And I did it from like, basically from like here all the way to the takeoff of this next step down. So here, taking a look here, we have a nice speed gap that's a little built up. It's a small takeoff, doesn't look like much, but it was a lot of work to build. It's cool to see this jump hasn't really changed, and I'm really excited to see how it's holding up. Like when I built it the first time, it was all organic in the gap, so nice and green. I kept as many bushes as I could in there, and there's still quite a few on the side here. I'm really impressed considering like how many people ride here now. And then the landing, nice and long, pretty mellow, like a pretty flat landing, because you're not really like popping high, you're just like kind of speed gapping, catching a nice pocket of landing here. And then the idea is to have it launch you off the big gap down there. Leading into the big gap here is quite a bit of bench cutting. I remember digging on like rainy winter days and having water just like flow through this hill. It was such a struggle. So I took some like logs, and I wasn't like comfortable with a chainsaw or anything at the time, so I just took like random rod and wood, stacked it in here, and then just piled it up and bench cut the whole thing. And it's crazy because like that was 9 years ago, and this is all still holding up after like multiple riders in here, and like lots of time has gone by. It's still holding up together, which is awesome. And this whole section is nice and flowy and fast and leads you into the big gap. This is the very first big jump that I ever backflipped, and it had a completely different lip at the time. It used to be a dirt lip. The original dirt lip was built up against this rod and stump, which used to go to about this high, and then the dirt went on top. So the jump was almost the exact same height originally. And then Jordy Lund came in, he took out the rod and bit of the stump and then framed in a wooden jump on top of that. But it wasn't actually this curve. That curve was rebuilt last year by Alex Volokov, but Jordy's lip was crazy. It was like shorter radius. I think it was like less than a 12-foot radius on a 7-foot takeoff, which is really steep for a big bike. And here's the original curve right here, so you can take a look at it. It's really small. Like you can see, like if I just like kind of put my foot on it and get this up a bit, kind of hard to do. And I only have one good arm right now, but it's like, it's really short and really boosty. Like it would kick people really hard. A few guys got injured from just like nose bombing the jump. I loved it once I figured it out because I could really blast it and go super high. But it was definitely a gnarly, sketchy Jordy stunt, which was like good and bad depending on who you ask. So yeah, the guys came in, they rebuilt everything, and this new wooden curve is so sick. Once you land on the big wooden ramp jump, you get a nice big long landing into a berm and then a big step down. This whole section was rebuilt by Jordy and Alex last year. What they did was widen this landing. It originally only came to about here, which was like okay when I had a dirt lip that was angled more inside, but when they built up a bigger wooden takeoff, it boosted you more outside, so they had to widen this landing. And honestly, it was way better than how I had it because it gave you way more room for error and you could just like get way more rowdy on the jump, which is awesome. So I'm so excited that this is here now. It's just like a big safety pad landing zone, super cool, really awesome. And then this whole section got rebuilt too, so they made my jump not as steep and wider and lined it up better. Because when I built this the first time, it was the second build of this section. So the original section came like, you'd have this berm here, but then it would just dip down into another S turn. So it would be like berm, berm, and then one more berm, and then one more berm. So yeah, 2 S turns, and that big pocketed corner down there wasn't there yet. And yeah, it was really fun. I got to like mess around, kind of keep changing it as time went on. And then the boys came in and made it even sicker than I ever had it. So it's so dope now. Like you have this nice fast catcher berm after a nice big wide landing. And then take a look at this thing. I'm just gonna walk you off it. It's a really long gap and you're going all the way down towards that big catcher berm down there. It's a really intimidating jump. A lot of riders are scared away from it, which is why there's a little ride around line right here. And yeah, as scary as it looks, it's actually quite easy, a lot of fun. Just a nice big floaty jump that like sets you up perfectly for that corner down there. This thing was crazy to build. Okay, so I utilized the hill again. There's a nice big long hill here. I didn't make the landing a lot steeper than the hill, which it kind of needed. It's a little flat, but regardless, I ended up with a big long transition. You can see from the tire marks that everyone hits it outside. Like no one's riding it from here. They're all going as outside as possible to line up for this big catcher corner right here. And this corner was so gnarly to build. Like I did it all 100% dirt. I had this like weird challenge for myself at the time where I want to build something this big, like a waist high berm pretty much. It's definitely packed down since I originally built it. Like it used to be like up here, but like a waist high berm, nice and long, that uses no filler at all. And it's not like the isolation zone I'm in now that has like a ton of dirt. There is good dirt here, but I had to do wheelbarrow loads. So if you look at like this big bomb pit right in here, that's all the dirt for that berm, and well worth it because I was able to stretch more content out of this line after I built this new little section. I shot more video segments, and then now we have a spot for lots of people to have a good time on. Okay, here's the next hit. So we have the berm comes out here. It's a pretty flat section. My original jump wasn't like this little jump here. It was a little further back, steeper, and you would just hip into the hill that way, and then it would lead you down through there. But there wasn't much flow. It didn't really connect to anything. And the force kind of ends here anyways. But when Jordy came back in here, he rebuilt everything and put a landing in here and then built this wooden ramp here, which is really cool. This style of building was actually a big inspiration for me over the last couple of years on how to work on my other line where I did a big wooden ramp. I even used like the exact same slats because this sort of wood is pressure treated and works really well for digging. And even like the same building style, like if you imagine the landing on the stump gap, this is the exact same build style. Just a nice hollow landing, utilizing wooden rounds to build. It saves you a ton of work. And this jump is really cool. It's not very big. Like the gap is actually quite short. Let's see if we can take a look at it from the side. Not very long. You definitely have to brake check like everything else here. So it fits the theme of this whole place, I guess. It's a lot of fun. I've backflipped this one a few times. I've seen guys do like really stylish tricks on it. It's just a really fun, chill way to end a pretty terrifying, intimidating line. And that is the whole zone. If you look at where we are right now, we're back down at the first jump I showed you in the video. So everything connects at the bottom. It's a small area, but jam-packed full of features. And this location just means so much to me. Like, I put so much work into the initial build. Other riders came and took it over. One of my like very best friends came in here, put his own flair on it, and we now both have our mark on this zone. So really cool place. I don't even have a name for it. It's just like the sweat equity zone because that's the first video I shot on it, was called Sweat Equity. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope you're doing really well this summer. It's definitely a weird year with COVID and everything, so I hope the vibes are sky high with everyone. And remember, if you want to be featured at the end of any of these videos, then go to the link in the description here, join that group folder, sign up for it, and upload your content so I can put you at the end of the videos. Okay, thanks again, guys. See you in the next one.
Oh!